Oh, welcome back from on top of the wall. That's right, your boy Mason, your boy Frankie, got a new haircut. Oh god, and since I'm feeling all fresh and fashionable, I decided to make a fun deck. I'm gonna call it Fashionable Fen. It's a mono black deck that has payoffs for artifacts and all kinds of good little synergies with equipment and different kinds of creature cards. And just something really just fun for... Yo, we always play something fun. I've always wanted to say the first time in a while, for the first time in a week. Alright, let's get right into it. Our build around for the deck this week is Fenhauler. It is a 5/5 insect for 6 and a black, and it has Improvise, so you can tap artifacts to reduce its cost by 1. And it also has Can't Be Blocked by artifact creatures. So it's a slightly better Gurmag Angler if you have the artifacts rather than cards in your graveyard. And I started thinking, like, what kind of artifacts can help keep us in the game until we get enough to cast this creature. So I started looking into artifacts, and I found 4 Alchemist Vial and 4 Ichor Wellspring, 3 Mycosynth Wellsprings. All these cards cantrip and get us another card in hand, keeping our hand size big, and we have good synergies for them. Plus we can later tap them for mana, for Fenhauler, and have other little artifact synergies. So getting this threshold of artifacts really can help us out and get us a lot more value than just that extra card. Then I started thinking there are probably some other artifacts in the game. I need something that really gives me a good board presence and does something for me until I can get Fenhauler out and really protect myself. So I realized that there are probably some artifacts out there that don't even require tapping to do this, and I realized that there's equipment cards. 1 Bladed Pinion, 4 Flare Husk, and 4 Viridian Longbow. Each of these equipments don't require tapping for their abilities. The equipment doesn't usually require a tap ability to use it, but it also gives us board presence immediately and helps us stabilize a little bit when paired with other creatures. So the 4 Flare Husk is just a really good, strong 1/1 for 1 that leaves behind its body even when it dies. And you can not tap the Germ token underneath, but just tap the equipped equipment, and that actually does pay for Inspire. Oh, sorry, Improvise. And you can do this for all the equipment. Bladed Pinion, just really strong with any of our big finishers or any of our creatures. Just first strike and flying. Okay, so it has this great ability to block, but also this great ability to attack. And the first strike just helps it outclass just about anything in the game. While Viridian Longbow may not seem quite right with Fenhauler, but it does actually have a very, very strong presence in the Elf deck and in some of the other decks in this format. So what I decided to do is I decided to take Viridian Longbow and put some payoffs in there for Viridian Longbow to have it actually be relevant in this deck. And the best payoffs for something that just gives a creature the ability to ping for 1 is Death Touch. If you've ever played Poison Arrows or know what Poison Arrows is, it's basically when you equip a Viridian Longbow or some ability to ping to a creature with Death Touch, and the creature deals 1 damage to something, and if it deals that damage and that creature doesn't have Indestructible or an ability to prevent the damage, that creature dies. So we can repeatedly, every single turn, just ping something dead for 1 damage, and they can't keep creatures on the board. So a good payoff for artifacts, but also as Death Touch was Doomed Operative. I don't know how to pronounce that, operative. 4 of them and 3 Throne of the Black Rose. Doomed Operative gives us an early board presence and it's very good. And I feel that it's very important to stabilize in the early game with strong creatures. Because in this format, after being blown out enough times by goblins and elves just showing up first thing, first game, just getting destroyed by them, I felt like it was absolutely necessary to have something against Stompy or Boggles or whatever. And the Throne of the Black Rose, also great for stabilizing us, gets us a ton of card advantage over a game, because usually they can't attack back into us, and usually with the Poison Arrows sitting out, it's impossible then to keep creatures on board, so we can just sort of keep the Monarchy all to ourselves. And then when we're getting rid of all of the creatures, we usually want to have a big finisher. So I decided to include 2 Mirror Enforcers to go along with our Fenhaulers. It's another creature that's very cheap and easier to cast. but there are some creatures that we can't exactly target or easily kill in the game, things with hexproof typically. So I decided to include some unconditional removal, 3 Chainer's Edicts, mainly for Boggles. If we're being honest, it's mainly to hate on Boggles. I wanted to include them in the main, and they're always just like a good extra card, plus it has a little bit of extra value for flashback. It's not bad for the flashback mechanic to just reuse again later if Boggles somehow manages to come back, or if they play a few creatures at once and we're lower on life, so we need an additional way to kill another creature at the time. And then I wanted at least one absolutely like just guaranteed removal card, unconditional, and that was Oubliette. Oubliette is the 1 black enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, it exiles a creature and all auras attached to that creature, and then when it leaves the battlefield, it returns that creature and all auras attached to it to the battlefield. It's kind of like Journey to Nowhere, but a little bit worse because it's more expensive and has the enchantment auras come back to it. But usually that doesn't come into play much, and we really needed just one way to, for sure, get rid of a creature just in case we were having some kind of problem and we just really needed to get rid of it. Then the last 4 non-land cards in the deck are 4 Costly Plunders. It's sort of like a... yes, that card. It is 1 and a black, instant speed, sacrifice a creature or an artifact and draw 2 cards. Keep in mind, we do have Ichor Wellspring and Mycosynth Wellspring in the deck. So this card paired with those basically is just a 2-card combo with either one of those that gets us 4 cards total for 2 cards and only 4 mana. Or we can play this in response to a removal spell that our opponent is using on us, and we can get rid of the card ourselves and draw 2 cards, fizzling their spell. Now the last part of the deck, the lands, as always, we have 4 Darksteel Citadels and 4 Vault of the Whispers for the affinity for Mirror Enforcer, and for the artifact payoff for the Dune Operative. Dund? Yeah, sure, let's go with that. And 11 Swamps for Mycosynth Lattice, and we are mono black, so obviously having a lot of swamps in there is good for us. And we don't mind flooding out too much with this deck. We always can use the extra mana to just quickly move around a Viridian Longbow if we have it from one Death Touch creature to the next, so that way it's very expensive at 3 mana to just move that thing around very quickly. So having the little extra mana is always an alright thing, but we don't want to flood out too much, obviously. And now for our sideboard. This sideboard is mainly skewed to help really stick it to some of the late game decks, especially Tron. It's so hard for us to win a game against Tron game 1, because we're set up for a slightly later game, and they're set up for a slightly later game, but they have just sheer value, just sheer unadulterated value, and the ability to recur cards repeatedly. And I really wanted to find a way around that. So I included 4 Choking Sands. It's just 1 black, destroy target land, and if it wasn't basic, its controller is dealt 2 damage. Then we have 3 Duress, strong card against any kind of control deck. It's very hard to get tempoed out with a counter spell against us when we're using this, and we get a lot of information off of our opponent, so the removal loses value, and we can play against things instead of playing into them. Plus get a 1-for-1 out of the deal. And then 3 Wrench the Mines. It is a strong, good discard card for only 2 mana. We can make target player discard a card and a second card unless they discard an artifact. So mainly don't side this one in against Tron, because typically Tron will have expedition maps and prophetic prisms to discard. So it's not necessarily the best idea to use this against them. Instead, you might want to put in 2 Neil Spell Bombs. These to hate on the graveyard and to hate on all of their annoying recursion. Then 2 Shrivels to hate on the elves, because elves. 1 Sylvok Lifestaff to help fight against something that's maybe a little hyper aggro, too hard for us to deal with, and to help skew the game in our favor. And that's it for this one. And if there's anything that you would like to see in any of my videos, or any deck that you would specifically like for me to play or if you'd like me to stream, or you'd like me to work on a certain deck, or try to like break something open and try to create something new in the format, something specific you would like to see, let me know. Just comment down in the video below, hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or such and such. Anything for another fun deck and something crazy that nobody else has tried. And stay tuned next week. I'm going to try to break into Changeling Tribal. Well, yes, that's right, Changeling Tribal. All the tribal payoffs, but with Changelings. We have all the tribal payoffs put together in one deck. Hopefully, well, actually, that's too many. Thinking about it, that's too many tribal payoffs. But yes, as many as we can fit that are as good as possible in one deck, full of Changelings. And hopefully by next week, you'll be ready to smash face with a bunch of ridiculous, dumb little overcosted creatures that for some reason are just really strong. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you next week. Coming in for that face touch.